Hi there, this is question 16 from the June 2012 Unit 3 Edexcel Higher paper, and it's a nice straightforward algebra question where I ask you to make t the subject of the formula, and then following that for part B you've got to solve some simultaneous equations. So making the t the subject of the formula means that we're aiming for the equation, the formula to be rewritten so that it's t equals everything else. In order to do that, we're going to need to do some rearranging. The first thing we're going to do is expand these brackets. And we'll end up with 2 times a plus 2 times t, and that equals 5t plus 7. Now we've got t's on both sides, and we want to avoid that. So the first thing to do is get all the t's on one side. So to do that, I'm going to take away 2t from this side and do the same to the other side to keep it balanced. The effect of that is by taking away 2t from the left-hand side, I'm just left with 2a, and the 2t goes away. If I take away 2t from the right-hand side, it leaves me with 3t, and I haven't done anything to the 7. Now I've got all the t's on one side, but I've also got a 7 there, and I don't really want that there, so I'm going to take that away and do the same on the other side. What that means is that I'll have 2a, because you can't take 7 away from a term with a letter in, so you just have to write it as 2a minus 7. The effect of taking away 7 from the right hand side is we're just left with 3t, because the plus 7 we cancelled out, and that's why I took away 7. Okay, we're getting closer now. That t is almost by itself. Just at the moment there's 3 lots of t. I don't want to be 3 lots, I just want 1. So I'm going to need to divide it by 3. And we've got 2a minus 7. If I divide that by 3, the easiest way to write that algebraically is just to put it all over 3. And if I divide by 3, it just means I've got 1t instead of 3. And there we have it. That, just for reference, this would get you the right answer, 2a minus 7 over 3. Would also be acceptable to write it as a third of 2a minus 7 as well. Either of those answers would be acceptable, but you only need to put one. You don't need to put both. Okay, we're now moving on to the second part, where we have to solve these simultaneous equations. Now if I just first of all put that one a and that one b, and that's always a good place to start with these simultaneous equations, is to label them a and b, or 1 and 2, whichever you're used to, so you can talk about what you're doing to each equation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and solve them by elimination, and to do that I'm going to need to make sure that either the amount of x's is the same or the amount of y's is the same. So I'm going to do that by making the same amount of x's. I've chosen x's because I only have to do one thing to give them the same amount of x's, and that is to multiply equation a by 3, which gives me 9x minus 12y, and don't forget to multiply both sides of the equation in a by 3, and that's equal to 24. Call that one c. And then in order to cancel out one of the variables, so I've now got 9x in both, which means what I can do now, because I've got 24 here and minus 1.25 in the other one, I'm going to do equation c, take away equation b, and that's to eliminate x, because what that will do is mean that 9x, take away 9x is nothing, minus 12y, take away 5y, so end up with minus 17y, and then 24, take away negative 1.5, which means we're going to have to add it. So if you take away negative 1.5, that's the same as adding it on, which means you end up with 25.5. If you are unsure about your adding and subtracting stuff, then do use your calculator and to help you make sure that you get those ones right. I've got minus 17y's. If I divide by minus 17, that will mean I just end up with y equals. So if I divide this by minus 17, I get my answer. It looks like it's going to be a complicated number, but actually it's not too bad. Minus 1.5. So I now know that y is minus 1.5. So if I take that value of 1.5, minus 1.5, and sub it into, well, I think I'm going to go for equation A. It looks a bit easier. So equation A is 3x minus 4, now y is minus 1.5, and that's equal to 8. So let's have a look. That must mean that minus 4 times minus 1.5, well, two lots of 1.5 would be 3, so 4 of them will be 6. And negative times a negative is a positive. And then if I solve this equation by taking away 6 from this side and taking away 6 from this side, I end up with 3x equals 2, which means if I just divide by 3, I'll be able to find out that x is 2/3. So x is 2/3 and y is minus 1.5. There is another method of solving simultaneous equations, which is called substitution, which is arguably just a little bit more taxing and worth looking at if you're not sure about that. So we've got our making the subject of the formula. So t, we rearranged it like solving equations, but we end up with just another formula written in a slightly different way. And then solving simultaneous equations by elimination. You make either the x's or the y's the same, add or subtract the two equations to cancel out one of the variables, and then you can find out the two solutions for y and x. Thank you for your time.